Hey there, this is Gregory Brennan with Virginia Clean Cities, and I'm a program coordinator here, and I'll be your host for today's Technology Happy Hour. Today's Tech Happy Hour was recorded on April 12th and features our longtime stakeholder, Cummins. Cummins is a powerhouse in the sustainable solutions landscape, and specifically when it comes to use of alternative fuels. And when many of you hear the name Cummins, you probably think diesel engines, and you're right, they are the world's largest diesel engine manufacturer. But in today's webinar, we're going to hear from 3 dynamic speakers from Cummins of how Cummins is pioneering the alternative fuel space. With that, let's get things started. Forgive me if I mispronounce this, but Jing, if you're ready,
Yeah.
we got the presentation up and ready to go, so I can get things started.
Yeah, sounds great. I'm ready.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So would you go to really appreciate for this opportunity. And here we got me and Courtney from Accelera and Harshil from also from Cessna, Cummins Sales and Service North America. So would you go to the next slide?
Sure.
So a little bit about me, and my name is Jen, and I'm from the Cummins Sales and Service North America AMAP team, which is alternative power adjacent market. I'm the business development manager, and mainly in charge for the zero emission related products we bring to the end customers. So Courtney is from Accelera, which is focused on our zero emission products, is a separate business unit from Cummins. So Harshil is also from Cessna. So I will let them, they will do their own brief introduction later. So will you go to the next slide? So today's agenda, I will introduce for the Cummins general overview for around 10 minutes, and then Courtney will do the general overview for the Accelera. Then lastly, Harshil will be introduce the proposed solution examples for around 15 minutes, and then we have another 5 minutes for the question and answer. So next slide, please. So Cummins, basically like we founded in 1919 and more than 100 years ago as a Cummins engine company, a corporation which is based on Columbus, Indiana, in US, and one of the first diesel engine manufacturers. Yeah, in 2001, we changed our name to Cummins Inc. So we are a global power leader that design, manufacture, distributes, and service diesel, natural gas engines and powertrain-related components products, including filtration, after treatment, turbochargers, fuel system, control systems. Of course, also include our new power-related from Accelera for the battery and electrified powertrain system. So today, we basically serve our end customers through a network of more than 10,000 Cummins certified dealer locations, with a service to around 190 countries and territories. Around the world, we have employees about more than 73,000. This is a number which is in 2022, I think. So each and every contribution from our global team is critical, and we basically advance towards zero emission in the future. In 2022, we continue to invest in the future critical technology and products. We made the investment for the 2022 is 1.2 billion and 1.1 billion in 2021, and is $900 million in 2020. So a lot of this investment, currently we focus on the zero emission. We are trying to reduce the, reduce the emission, and we basically invest on the new power related products. So next slide, please. So how do we do the reduce the emission and get the focus on model zero emission? And basically we are deliver this via the 5 different operation segments. In each of our operation segments, we compete like worldwide with a number of other manufacturers and distributor that produce and sell similar products. Our products compete like primarily on the basis of performance, fuel economy, speed of delivery, quality, and customer support and price, etc. So with the five like segments, we call it a five business unit. It's a engine business, is built and range with the diesel, natural gas, and other engines for the on-highway, off-highway applications. So power system is provide integrated power through the design, manufacture, and sales of the engine for 16 liters and larger. Previous power system is a part of the engine business unit, but we separate like the larger engines to get it as a power system. So for the components, we sell filtration products, after treatment system, turbochargers, fuel system, and electronics and transmissions. These components are integrated to the engine to make it run cleaner and with more power. Distribution business, that is where I and Harshil we are. This is the biggest customer-facing part of the Cummins. And our distributors and dealers are based around the global, to provide the products, service, and support to the end customers who rely on Cummins products. So Accelera by Cummins, this is a startup business in a quickly changing market landscape, and it is under Cummins, but with a brand we call it Accelera. It's basically mainly deliver the battery and the powertrain system, electrolyzer, and fuel cell, these kind of products to targeting for the zero emission. So next slide, please. So for the applications here, and it is we have for these five different operation segments, provide integrated and innovative technologies across many applications. We have on-highway, off-highway, and industrial. We have many applications, as you can see here. You can go to cummins.com to get more updated product applications, and there will be more information there. Next slide, please. So Planet 2050, and this is our, it's a goal from Cummins, and it's basically like by 2050, Cummins' target, including is carbon neutrality, to waste nothing and have a net positive impact for every community in which we operate. These are really big goals, and we committed to make that happen. So Planet 2050 is a long-range business strategy with an environmental lens that use actions, advocacy, and partnership to do our part to drive change to the healthy planet. It's basically like got a couple of priorities. The first is addressing climate change and air emissions. Second is using natural resources sustainably. And lastly is partnering so that our communities are better because we are there. So next slide, please. So this is our for goal in 2030, to reach the 2050 goal. And basically by 2030, and we are basically reducing Scope 3 absolute lifetime greenhouse gas emission from newly sold products. And 55 is a metric ton reduced from Scope 3 greenhouse gas emission from the product in the field, and 50% reduction in absolute greenhouse gas emission from facility and operations, and 50% reduction in volatile organic components emission from the paint and coating operations. So This is like our general goal from the Cummins, and the next I will hand to Courtney to introduce for the general overview of Accelera.
Yes, thank you, Jen, and good afternoon, everyone. I'll give a quick introduction about myself. My name is Courtney Cesarski. As Jing alluded to, I fall under the Accelera by Cummins business segment under the big Cummins umbrella. And so I'll take you through just a few slides regarding Accelera, what falls under our product portfolio, as well as some of the real world experience and just some quick statistics on what we've been able to achieve in such a short amount of time. Before we move on, I do want to quickly just highlight our goals around decarbonization and show you what the base business is working on, as well as our zero emissions business, which is Accelera, where we're focused on now to reach our goals that Jing had explained regarding Planet 2050. So within our base business and the technology and solutions that we're working through today and that we'll deliver over the next 5 to 10 years, we're really expanding and focused on expanding presence into our core segments. We'll continue to grow as well in the aftermarket and as well as invest in differentiated technologies such as hydrogen. Within Accelera, it's very much the same, in which we're focused on in investing in differentiated technologies, which we'll introduce here in a few slides. We'll also continue to expand into strategic adjacencies based on where the market is adopting now and in the future. Across both the base business segments as well as Accelera under our zero emission technologies, our key capabilities across both businesses are the exact same. We'll continue to innovate technologies. Really the great thing about both Accelera and the base business, and Accelera being a part of Cummins that's been around for over 100 years, is really our application knowledge and our customer base. So we have that knowledge internally at the application level and build our capabilities for the future. Okay, next slide. Thank you. So regarding Accelera, Jing had kind of alluded to this, but back in March of last year, so a little bit over a year ago, our zero emissions business segment actually rebranded to Accelera. And this was done for a variety of different reasons. But within Accelera, our mission is to accelerate the shift to net zero by pursuing the most promising paths forward. Prior to our rebranding of now being Accelera, this business was previously called the New Power business, which also implies that there is an old power. And so we didn't want to create that image about our base business, especially because there are innovative technologies within our hydrogen and what we're working on to deliver over the next few years. But within Accelera, we have a variety of technology from battery packs as well as fuel cells and electrolyzers to meet a variety of needs of our customers. So if you'll move on to the next slide, we'll show you a little bit about how Accelera is organized today and the various core technologies and business segments. So I fall under the e-mobility technology segment, which you see in the middle towards the right side of the screen. So I'll primarily focus on kind of those technologies and our experience of what we've gained today, but I'll start with electrolyzers and just briefly introduce that and fuel cells first. So within our electrolyzers product segment, we're creating solutions for industrial and commercial hydrogen generation and megawatt scale energy storage applications. We do use 2 different types of electrolysis today, PEM, which is proton exchange membrane, as well as alkaline hydrogen generation. Moving on to fuel cells, our fuel cell team is really focused on creating as well as integrating fuel cells for mobility and stationary power applications. When we think about fuel cells and the market adoption for fuel cells, we do see that this technology is a bit farther out. And so for e-mobility and the products that we have available in the e-mobility product segment today, the market adoption is here today and now. So For fuel cells, however, we're still working on a few different varieties of fuel cells and fuel cell products, and they're primarily focused on heavy-duty truck as well as transit bus and rail applications. Under the e-mobility segment, there's actually been a lot of growth within our e-mobility product segment over the last couple of years. And I'll quickly highlight that because our product scope has greatly expanded. So back in September and October of 2022, we announced the acquisition of Meritor and Siemens commercial vehicles. So with those acquisitions came the additions of e-axles as well as motors and inverters into our portfolio. So under e-mobility, we now have a variety of technology to transition maybe a natural gas engine or an internal combustion engine powertrain into a fully electric BEV or fuel cell platform. On the battery side, we're primarily focused on commercial vehicle applications today, as well as energy storage systems. And we have a variety of different battery chemistries that we're working on today as well, because we think that our customers and the needs out there, there's a wide variety of needs. And so that's why we have a few different battery chemistries that we're working on to deliver into our portfolio today. On the battery side as well, back in September of last year, we announced the joint venture with Daimler and PACCAR to localize cell manufacturing here in North America. So it was a rather large investment. If folks are interested, there's been a few press releases and you can find it on our website. But total investment is expected to be between $2 and $3 billion. So we're super excited about that joint venture. That location will be in Marshall County, Mississippi, which is just outside of Memphis, Tennessee. Lastly, on the kind of last column that you see over there, we also have integration capabilities. And so for a lot of our customers, they may not have the resources or the capabilities or knowledge towards integrated systems. And that's where we can come in to help guide them along that transition to a BEV or a fuel cell electric system. In addition to integrated systems, we also have our PCAS product. And so essentially that's a modular design that houses a variety of different components into one module. And so there's thermal management, there's a DC-DC converter, and there's a few other components that go into PCAS. But essentially under e-mobility, you have your power source, such as a battery. You also have your traction system as well under e-mobility. And then you also need the e-accessories, which is our PCAS product. So again, this is high level how Accelera is organized today and what we're focused on. And so in the next couple of slides, we'll show you how all of our technology is complementary and what we've been able to achieve this far. So if you can go on to the next slide. Perfect, thank you. So really, I'll just quickly touch on this slide fairly quickly and then move on to the next ones. But at a high level, what we're really trying to achieve across Accelera, whether it be battery electric vehicles or fuel cell electric vehicles, as well as hydrogen production, that we have common components across all of them. And in our controls, this is really goes back to our base business as well, and that we're able to leverage a lot of the controls and common elements that we used on the diesel side of the business into the Accelera business and zero emission technologies and portfolio. In addition to that, all of our end markets are the same across the different technology portfolios that we have today. Okay, if you'll move on to the next slide. So as far as real world experience goes, I'll primarily focus on battery on this slide. And so today we have partnerships in school bus and transit bus applications with Gillig and Bluebird. And so we've been primarily focused on those two applications now, as that's where market adoption has been fairly heavy. And so we have integrated powertrains in both school bus and transit bus applications. However, we really believe that demonstration units are equally as valuable in expanding our knowledge and expertise into various markets today. So we also have had products and demonstration units across applications such as pickup and delivery trucks, a Class 8 truck, as well as terminal tractor and off-highway applications as well, such as 7, 8-ton excavators. On the fuel cell side, they've also had a lot of experience gained in the rail space for passenger trains, as well as Class 8 trucks and transit bus applications. And then lastly, on our electrolyzer product segment, hydrogen generation is primarily their focus right now. And so they'll continue to grow and expand that over the future on the electrolyzer side for hydrogen generation. Okay, next slide. So just fairly quickly, this is really what we've been able to accomplish today. And these numbers have grown significantly as we've expanded our portfolio on the e-mobility side with the addition of Meritor and Siemens commercial vehicle businesses. So for integrated systems and battery electric accomplishments, we have over 2,000 vehicles that are operating out in the field today with our integrated powertrains. And this number continues to grow daily, which we're super excited about. In addition to that, we have been able to accumulate over 10 million battery electric vehicle miles out in the field. Again, a large portion of that does come from our school bus and transit bus applications, as well as our accomplishments on the traction side too. And then lastly, we have been able to deliver almost 10,000 total batteries to our customers today. So we've been, producing batteries and putting our batteries out into our customer applications for the last 5 to 6 years. And so we've really been able to grow and achieve a lot since then. And we look forward to these numbers expanding in the future. Okay, next slide. And I think I'll pass it over to Harshil to take us through the last portion of the slide deck.
Awesome. Thanks, Courtney. Thanks, Jing, for the presentation so far. Hey, Greg, maybe we'll come back to this slide after. Maybe we can go to the next slide first. Perfect. Microgrids and EV charging. So before I talk about microgrids and EV charging, I want to introduce myself first. This is Harshil Angre, a business development manager on the power generation and the microgrids team in Cummins. A bit background, I've done my mechanical engineering from Purdue University and then joined Cummins as a project engineer. And then over the years, I've moved into this business development role. So microgrids, this is such a buzzword around, everyone keeps talking about microgrids. So before I talk about what we have and how is it applicable to you, let's understand what is a microgrid, right? A microgrid is a locally controlled, utility independent power source. That means, it's supporting the utility. It could be where there is no utility. It could be paralleling with the utility, or it could be a backup generation. So anything that is local to your site can be considered a microgrid. That can mean if you have one power source, or it could have 2 power sources or 3 power sources, everything combined. These are all different types of microgrids. Now, depending on what you have available on the site, if the utility is available, how much utility is available, the power sources, you can integrate solar, you can integrate battery system storage, you can integrate natural gas generators, or any other kind of wind power, any other power sources. Everything is considered a microgrid. Now, why are we talking about microgrid for EV charging? Now, you might have seen there's a huge influx of fleet electrification. Everyone is moving from their traditional diesel fleets to EV fleets, or maybe hydrogen fleets in the future. But what's happening with this transition is that you're occupying a lot of load, or you're giving a lot of load to the utility. And utility might not be capable enough to support your needs. So there are these 3 top challenges that surround fleet electrification. And we'll go one by one. So the very first one, it says utility and grid outage, right? I mean, you're so much dependent on utility. And if the utility goes out, your EV fleet or your building who's relying on the utility goes out, right? Now imagine the applications, school buses, transit buses, any other kind of EV vehicles, how are you going to charge them? So you need some kind of resiliency or a backup to utility. That's where the microgrid comes in. The next challenge is the increase in power demand. Now, talking about fleet electrification, if you have like 20 buses in your fleet, and each bus is getting charged by, say, a 200 kilowatt charger, and imagine 20 buses charging together, that's like 20 times 200. That's like 4,000 kilowatt, 4 megawatt of power increase. Now, utility might not be capable enough to provide that additional load. So in that case, you can consider having a microgrid on site. If you have only 1 megawatt available, you can have a 3 megawatt microgrid paralleling with the utility and supporting your power needs. Or you can get rid of utility completely. Just have a 4 megawatt microgrid independent of utility, supporting your plant loads. Now the third one is rise in energy consumption. Now you have fleets, EV vehicles, EV buses, all charging almost every day for almost 30 days a month. Now imagine the energy consumption and the utility bill that you'll get after 30 days. Right now, if you have buses around like 200 kilowatt hour battery sizes and you're charging them say 20 or 25 days a month, from like 20% to 100%, I did some rough calculations. You can increase your energy consumption by like 50 to 100,000 kilowatt hours of energy. So that's a huge impact on your utility bill at the end of the month. So you can consider using a microgrid, which is a combination. As I said, you can include solar, which is free. You could include other kinds like natural gas, which is cheaper at certain times than the utility. So all these combinations, you can reduce your electricity bill significantly. And you might also be aware of the demand charges on your utility bill, which is the peak power consumption. Now, I've seen utility bills where 50% of the bills are just the demand charges. Now, imagine if you're reducing that peak, if your peak is like 2 megawatt, right? And you're paying for 2 megawatt times some dollar amount. Now, if you use a separate energy source to reduce your peak, now you're only peaking at like 500 kilowatt, and that remaining 1.5 megawatt is coming from solar or from natural gas. Your electricity bills, your operating expense per month is significantly low. And on the right hand side of the screen, you see a kind of a picture which demonstrates what can comprise of a microgrid. And if you could just read through, microgrid controllers, switch gears, is the part where you integrate all the energy sources. Even if it's one, then you don't need an elaborate controller, elaborate switch gear. It could be just one power source and one breaker, connecting to your switch gear or a distribution box. The energy storage device, solar PVs we discussed, hydrogen fuel cells, that is another avenue that you could explore. If you have the fuel availability, if you have hydrogen available, or if your goals incline towards having hydrogen utilized in your site, you can explore a hydrogen fuel cell option, which runs on pure hydrogen and it has zero emissions. The next step is the gas and the diesel generators. That's a traditional power generation technology that has been going on for decades and decades, and they're still most reliable. So you can have all these other sources like solar and battery, but when they fail, you can have a backup with these generators. Or if natural gas, if you have natural gas available at your site, which is very cheap compared to utility at peak hours. So you can consider using natural gas for your power generation than relying on utility. Last up is the EV charger packages. Well, since we're talking about EV charging, Cummins has EV chargers in our portfolio as well that we will explore. But essentially, the microgrids is the power source, right? You can apply it to any application. In today's call, we're discussing EV charging or fleet electrification, but essentially it can be applied for any kind of loads, for your building loads, for your hospitals, for industries, wastewater treatment plants, anything. So Cummins can model, design, implement, and maintain all of these equipment. And I'll talk more about the one-stop solution as Cummins on the next slide. Yep. So this slide talks about the stages that are involved within microgrid, development or implementation or service. So imagine, you screened your site, you screened your application, and now you want to know what are the next steps. All right. So the next steps are basically explore, which is design or energy modeling. And Cummins can help you with that. Cummins has softwares and subject matter experts who can look at your site, your utility bills, your fuel availability, and will help model or do a kind of simulation of your site and do a financial analysis of how much would be the capital expense, how much would be the operational expense, and what is the rate of return every year, and then present that to you. And then you can make a decision, like an informed decision of whether this solution fits your site or not. The next step is the full end-to-end energy solutions value package, which is basically saying, we can get the right equipment to the site based on the design we did, and we do the installation. We make sure everything is according to the drawings, and help you with the project management, logistics, coordination. Everything gets on the site and gets installed, and then running or commissioning the whole system. And then the last thing, which is the aftermarket support. You might be familiar, Cummins service centers are all across US, and and they are like within certain miles from each other. So if you have any problems, we have emergency dispatch. We have spare parts available at these service centers. We have people in the service centers to respond to your requests. So and then we also provide like long-term service agreements in which we would come to the site, at a fixed interval, could be quarterly, monthly, half yearly, do all the necessary preventative maintenance to reduce your downtimes. And if you have any emergency events, we'll be dispatched. We have remote monitoring capabilities. So if you say, hey, this thing is not working, you can call us. We can remote log into the system, check what is the default, what is the problem. And when we dispatch a technician, he can carry those parts and replace it. So this reduces the downtime tremendously. So these are the stages of the project that you would have to go through when you decide to pursue a microgrid. And again, I would repeat, microgrid it could be just one generator, could be one solar, or could be combination of everything. A lot of times people get confused. They see microgrid and then they think like 10 different things in the mix, but no, just one of them is also a microgrid if it's independent of utility. We'll go back to the first slide, which we skipped before, Greg. Perfect. Well, this is infrastructure at a glance. So what does this have? This has all the elements that we discussed so far combined on this one slide. The first piece, design, right? Cummins, if you contact us, we would take care of the design work. We would involve the appropriate design engineers or the engineering consulting services, I'm pretty sure you would have your own preferred engineering consultants, right? And then we would work with them to prepare the drawings and basically make an off-the-shelf set of drawings that we can just go out to the construction or the contracting vendors or contractors or EPC firms. If you're familiar with EPC, stands for engineering, procurement, and construction companies. So they are the ones that put together the whole projects. Cummins can bring in the equipment. We have in-house products. I will talk about what products we have. And then we'll bring the right products, like all the way from, as we discussed, the power sources, the switch gears, the controllers, down to chargers, EV chargers. We have level 3 fast charging chargers, buses, if you need help with getting the bus manufacturer. And as Courtney mentioned, we provide battery electric powertrain for Gillig and Bluebird, the major bus OEMs out there for the fleets. Next up is the software, which is the route planning. If you have a fleet with you, we can help you with the route planning of what would be the best route for the EV buses, depending on the mileage and the state of charge they are currently at. And remote monitoring, we remote monitor the power generating assets, microgrids, and EV chargers. Everything will be monitored, and you can monitor sitting in your office as well. All these softwares are enabled, they have multiple user level restrictions. You can sit in your office and basically manage your entire fleet. You don't even have to go physically to the site. That's the software piece. The install piece. So Cummins is the equipment supplier. We make all the equipment in-house, and then we rely on partners to do the installation work. Now, you would have a preferred contractor, right, that you've worked in the past. We can collaborate with them, or if you want Cummins to bring in our own partners for installation, we can do that as well. So we'll do the installation work, everything from civil, mechanical, electrical, architectural, everything, we would take care of that. And lastly is the O&M service, which is the operations and maintenance service. That ties back to the service agreement. If you have a service agreement with us, which would be catered to your needs, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years service agreement. So once you have installed the system, you don't have to worry about allocating a technician to service something, so that's the value that Cummins brings in on all aspects around microgrids and EV charging specifically, but microgrids in general for any application. We can go on to 3 slides down in the list. And since we're waiting for questions in the end, I'll stick to that format. If you have any questions, please take a note of the slide number, and we'll come back to it at the end of the presentation. So, all right, this slide talks about Cummins school bus solutions. Now we have these products, which is not complete, but quite relative to this meeting. And if you have questions, we can talk about it more. We can supply documentations. We can have a separate internal call, to discuss these. And we went through the powertrain aspect on the powertrain itself on these electric vehicles, the engines, the aftermarket service. Now in the middle column, the second column, we have these chargers, which we did not speak so far. We have level 2 and level 3 chargers. Well, the level 2 and level 3 is depending on the kilowatt, right? Many people get confused with level 1, 2, and 3. What is the difference, etc. But in general, the higher the kilowatt, the higher level it is. So the first 2 that you see, the Mobile 50, that is a 50 kilowatt level 3 DC fast charger. That means it charges fast compared to the other level 1 and level 2 chargers. And the other beneficial thing or the unique feature of that is it's mobile. It has wheels in the bottom. So if a lot of times the fleet cannot reach the chargers. So in that case, a mobile 50 solution with wheels, you can just drag the charger to the bus, and you can have those varying cable lengths that we can discuss. So yeah, mobile 50 solution. Then you have the Flex 180. That's the 180 kilowatt solution. So depending on the battery size of the electric vehicle itself, you can choose which one best suits your needs and how fast charged do you want the vehicle and how much is the stoppage time. If you only have 1 hour of stoppage time in the afternoon, you would want to go with a higher kW output on the charger so that it can charge faster. So that's the Flex 180. And then you can connect like 3 buses or 3 electric vehicles to that one charger. So you'll get 60 kilowatt each, or you can connect one and get 180. Last up, that's the level 2. That's a smaller range. That's like up to 20 kilowatts of chargers. So if you don't have fast charging needs, you can go with a less cost option, more cost effective option of level 2 chargers. So we have that as well in our product portfolio. Along with the powertrain and the microgrids. The last column talks about some of the examples or some of the real life pictures out there. You have like a solar canopy in your parking lot, and you have the buses parked under it. You can have the EV chargers mounted on the ceiling of that solar canopy, or it could be on the curb, depending on however you want it. And you can operate the solar along with the battery as paralleling with the utility, or it could act as an island mode. That means independent of the utility. So your solar, the battery, and the other power generation sources would provide power for everything. And the last tab that says the bill optimization and peak shape, that ties in with the first, in the first slide, I made a comment about reducing the peak because there's a significant electricity bill allocated to demand charges. So if you need help with studying your electricity bills, seeing what is the best technology to use to reduce your operating expenses, we are here to help. So having that said, I'll move on to the next slide. That's one of the success stories we wanted to share. This is just one out of many. So in this one specifically, we've chosen this one because we got awarded the EPA Clean School Bus Grant in New York. And it was one of the biggest grants out there. And those are the project configurations that were included in the grants, and then we worked on it. So it includes the buses, the chargers, and everything. So if you want more information on that, again, feel free to reach out to us, and we can help you replicate or help you with the grants application. We have a dedicated team in Cummins, which helps with finding available grants and then applying for those grants. So our grants team, in combination with your grants team, we can sharpen the application, and our grants team, we hire different third-party grant writing professionals, and the winning rate is like 90% up. So definitely, if you want to explore that, again, Cummins has a team for that. Having said that, that was the last slide in my presentation, and I can open the floor for question. I know it was a long stretch, like 40 minutes or 50 minutes of people speaking. So open the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Harshil. That was very interesting, very informative. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute and ask it outright. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, there's also a chat that I can read your question out for you as well. I saw that Eveline mentioned here that she wondered whether VCC could support customer grant applications such as a Clean School Bus grant or with the VW money, Volkswagen money. Yes, we would be interested in doing something like that. We can talk about more like that, more about that off of this call. via email if they actually ever go through. We've had issues with emails not coming in from Cummins specifically. So, and if that happens to you guys and no one's responding, just give us a call. We will answer our phones. So does anyone have any questions? I have one if no one does. I'm curious. So I know that you guys do a wide range of fuels, zero emissions, and also low emissions, like with propane and other things like that. Are there any engines or things you produce that are like propane hybrids? So like they're half part propane or part electric, or is that not a thing?
I would, yeah, I would rely on Eveline and Courtney and Jing if you guys want to answer after me. On part propane and part electric, I know about part propane and natural gas. So our engines are, they can be run on both gases, and this is just a calibration change. So are you specifically asking on the electric vehicle, on the vehicle side? I'm assuming, right, Greg?
Yeah, that's correct. I'm just curious. It's never something I've thought about. Usually, you see hybrid as it's a gasoline and battery hybrid, but it would be interesting to see if there was a propane natural gas vehicle that also was a hybrid that would run off partially off battery as well. Just curious. I didn't know if that was something you guys did, and if you don't, that's totally okay. But
So I can step on that. In terms of hybrid, we only have diesel and natural gas hybrid with battery pack. It's just the diesel and natural gas, the traditional engine families. We just released like a fuel agnostic engine platform, so it can have like diesel, natural gas through to the hydrogen too. But I personally never heard there's a propane combined with diesel, combined with the battery version.
okay, yeah.
Hey, this is Tucker Perkins. I will with the Propane Council. I will
Sure.
tell you that Cummins 6.7 liter propane engine that's a part of their fuel agnostic platform
Yeah.
would work well in hybrid applications, particularly around Class 8. And we are currently working on probably 3 different platforms that would be propane electric hybrids. 2 years ago, we couldn't make it work. Kind of as we now look at the powertrain choices for both the EV side and the IC side, we're really encouraged about what we're saying. So, yeah, I do believe in the next 2 to 3 years, you'll see quite a few propane hybrid. And our argument, frankly, if anybody wants to weigh in later on, I'd love to hear from them, is should they be, mild hybrids, or should they be plug-ins to take advantage of both, tax advantages and to a degree, most of the net zero rules. So just to put it in, I've enjoyed this webinar. Thanks for allowing me to listen. And that Cummins 6.7 propane works perfectly in a hybrid application. And it's one of probably 3 engines that we're currently working on for hybrids.
And I would just emphasize my great love for Cummins and the engines that they produce. The fuel neutrality or the fuel agnostic, these engines can gobble several types of fuels and perform across the spectrum of those fuels. Although obviously they, when they get installed into vehicles, it gets a little more specific as the vehicles themselves have those fuel systems. And just to appreciate that note about how these are engines, and so they do combustion, but then for electricity, it is adding motors and batteries. And so it would be not combusting those batteries, but it's just a beautiful space. But I did want to appreciate Cummins for their agnostic engines that take multiple fuels as well.
Thank you, Alan. And Park to help us to reply this. We have propane hybrid. It's learning from me too. Thank you very much.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Spurred them on from that little conversation?
I have a question, Greg, for the team here.
Sure.
We talked about microgrids and talk about the fleet electrification. What realistic targets are there on fleet electrification? Is it going 100% fleet electrification, or 50% of the fleet is planned, or nothing? What are the plans around it? And then a follow-up question would be on the power side. If we are electrifying the fleet and getting these chargers installed, have you considered about the impact on the utility, and are they exploring microgrids?
Are you asking me specifically?
No, for the team. Anyone
Okay.
here? Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. Well,
Anyone want to speak up to that?
So, the impact on the grid is really going to be, tied to and this maybe gets to a good dialogue with what Tucker was raising. That impact on the grid is tied to how much energy is used to move the vehicle for what duty cycle, and how much time that operator has to refuel that vehicle at the infrastructure. So the type of managed charging, oftentimes when you're doing a heavy duty electric vehicle, you're starting off with a mobile charger or a diesel backup generator. A lot of our heavy duty fleets start with a diesel generator. And so there's permitting and microgrid costs that expand. And so I would just say it does seem like there's this whole ecosystem that's really tied back to the vehicle. How much is the vehicle going to move? How much time does that operator have that's downtime between those routes, and where to either refuel, as what Tucker was mentioning, on either electricity or on a combustible fuel. And I'll just go further and just say how much I appreciate the renewable biofuels. So renewable natural gas is now more than 80% of the natural gas that's used across the United States as a transportation fuel, and renewable propane is accessible as well, and in throughout the country. And there's a emerging product, and it's being gobbled up in California. But in addition to biodiesel, there's this renewable diesel. So there's a way to use these decarbonized or emission reducing biofuels. So I'll stop there and hope that that sparked Tucker's willingness to come back in on other parts of this microgrid.
Well, I was trying to get to my unmute button just to say, one, we're doing quite a few microgrids outside of Virginia. We've been involved in quite a few, and even to somebody who's in the technology every day, I'm surprised at the conversations we're having now around 300 megawatts. It's just the size keeps moving up. So microgrids are really tricky in that usually utility based. But I would say if anybody on this call is interested in talking about microgrids, and we certainly are prepared to help them on the backup gen side. And generators are changing. This conversation with Cummins, they didn't talk openly about just the durability. For the first time, really in my life, remembering, we're now bringing in engines that have the same durability profile as diesels and the same thermal efficiency. So we've probably got a dozen active microgrids, mostly in California, mostly around utilities, de-energizing the utility for fire danger. But if someone in Virginia or listening to this call is interested in a microgrid, we're certainly going to be a partner.
Yeah, definitely. I am in alignment, Tucker. If you need you or anyone on the call needs support in just screening their site for a microgrid application, whether it could be solar, natural gas, renewable natural gas, or even those renewable diesels, certainly feel free to get in touch with Cummins or myself, and then we can screen or vet the site and then help you with the design. Okay, perfect.
That's great. Yeah, and we're about out of time here, but one thing I wanted to say as well, at Virginia Clean Cities, we do energy electrification fleets, or like electrify your fleet reports. And so we've done a few for different universities in the area and a few other counties, or municipalities, maybe not full counties, but about what it would cost to do like an all fuels report, as Alan was saying. And so we will lay out all the greenhouse gases they could save, and then also like if they would need additional chargers or additional power, if they decided to go with EVs and the whole cost. So if anyone comes to you guys and wants to know more about that, you can send them our direction, and that's what we're literally paid to do. So we'd be happy to help with that as well. Like we just got one for Norfolk State University and turned one in for them. And they have a fleet that would be great for electrification, especially considering some of the incentives available now in Virginia. And they don't drive enough though to add a microgrid or the need to add extra additional power. And if they bought an EV, they could charge every 4 days. And that's if they drove, cumulative of their months amount of miles that they were like logging on their vehicles. So yeah, we're able to do that for you as well. But yeah, with that, I think this is great, and I really appreciate everyone coming to Cummins webinar today, and technology happy hour, or lunch and learn, whatever you want to call it. And with that, I'll let everybody get going, and I'm going to stop recording here.